Hey everybody, so back on August 5th I made a video about pruning fig trees, and in that video I pruned a Violet de Bordeaux and a Laterola Italian honey fig, and I had a bunch of cuttings left over, and I said that I was going to try and root those cuttings and grow them into individual fig trees. The awesome thing about figs is they're similar to a tomato in that if you soak cuttings, young cuttings from that tree, they will sprout roots out of the nodes, and you can actually plant them in moist soil and clone the tree. So here we are 13 days later, it's August 18th, and I have had the cuttings from the tree wrapped up in a damp paper towel in this Ziploc bag in the upstairs room in my house. I put it up here because it's usually 79-80 degrees up here in my office. And I wanted it to be in the warmest, most humid environment in the house, and this bag is sort of acting like a humidity chamber, and you can already see that I've sprouted roots successfully in all of my fig cuttings. And I want to show you exactly what I did here. So these are the cuttings from each of those trees that I pruned. This is the Laterola Italian honey fig, and all I did was double up a paper towel by folding it in half, wetting it, and I left about an inch exposed on each side, so I really only wrapped up the center. And you can clearly see that these nodes all sprouted roots, and some are more advanced than others, but I think at this stage all of these can be planted in potting mix. Since the temperatures are still nice and warm outside, being it's mid-August, I think I can successfully grow these into trees. I'll show you what the Violet de Bordeaux fig looks like. Unwrap them, and you can clearly see all of these sprouted as well. So it's pretty cool to see this. You can see all these little bumps right here. All those little bumps right there will turn into root nodes if you put them in a warm, wet environment for long enough. So what I can basically do now is I can take some potting mix and put them in like a red Solo cup and keep it damp and bury them and let the roots grow out. And each one of these will grow into a true clone of the original tree. It's Sunday, August 19th, and I'm going to transplant my fig cuttings that I showed you yesterday. And all I'm going to use for this is a simple bag of Earth Grow potting soil, just all-purpose potting soil I picked up at Walmart today for $2.77. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take small containers, and I'm going to just put down about 1 to 2 inches of potting soil on the bottom. So what you'll notice with this fig cutting is all of these little lumps and bumps. These lumps and bumps are root nodes right here. They will sprout out to be additional roots. So we only want to put about 1 inch or 2 of soil down because we are going to try to bury this fig branch, so all of these lumps and bumps turn into roots like this. Now I've taken these out of my wet plastic bag for only about half an hour, and they're already starting to dry up. So I'm going to have to get this into moist potting soil as quickly as possible. So here are all of our containers. They're filled up with potting soil, about 1 inch, 1.5 inches each, and you'll see all of the containers are labeled. I have Laterola Italian honey and Violet de Bordeaux. So all we're going to do is we're going to put the proper cutting in the correct container. Then we're just going to completely backfill around them and water them in really well and make sure that they're standing straight up. It's important that you put a little bit of soil down first and not just fill up the container and drill these cuttings in, because you'll snap off the really fragile roots. You want to put down that inch or so layer first, and then you just want to fill around it and lightly press with your thumbs down to give it good compaction and make sure that there's no air voids, but not so tight that you squeeze all of the oxygen out of the soil and suffocate the roots. Now that all the rooted fig cuttings have been transplanted, we're just going to water them in really well with a light shower of warm water until the potting soil mixture completely absorbs and becomes saturated. One thing you'll notice is that I used pretty small containers to plant these figs. A lot of people purchase bigger cups like red Solo cups so they can really bury the figs up pretty far and get a root system out of them that's extensive, because figs will root all the way up the cutting. I don't have anything bigger than this, and I don't feel like going out to the store to get anything more, and I have a sneaking suspicion that they'll do just fine. Now we're going to place them in a dark, warm, and humid place so they can recover and begin the rooting process. We're going to make sure to keep the soil very moist the entire time to encourage root growth. I'm putting the fig cuttings in the back windowsill of my screened-in porch. This portion of the windowsill does not get any direct sunlight, so it's shady all day. They'll only get indirect sunlight. And as I see new growth start to form on the cuttings, that's how I know that the root's starting to take. And when I start seeing new growth, I will slowly move them over more and more into the sunnier portions of the windowsill. And eventually I'll want them to wind up right here where I'm germinating some seeds, because that windowsill there gets a few hours of direct sunlight. And then after it acclimates to that windowsill, I'll be able to move them outside in the full sun. I strongly suggest when rooting fig cuttings that you root far more than you need. If you only want 2 fig plants, root 4 to 6 of them, because they're not all going to be a success sometimes. Sometimes the rooting will fail, so it's not unheard of for all of the cuttings not to take. After all, this is how figs have been spread for generation after generation. They are the oldest known cultivated fruit. Human plantings date back to over 10,000 years ago, and the way they've been shared is they've been just given as cuttings to neighbors as a food source for centuries, if not millennia. A lot of people have fig trees in their backyard because of it, and they don't even know what fig tree it is. It's August 31st, and here is the progress of my fig cuttings. Originally, I wrapped these in wet paper towels, but I was finding that the wet paper towels would dry out after the better portion of a day, so I decided that I was going to keep these in little humidity chambers made out of 1-gallon freezer bags, and so far so good. You can clearly see they're collecting moisture inside as they should, and you can also see the leaves that are forming on each of the fig sticks, on each of the cuttings rather. So, looking through the bag, you can see that every single fig cutting is sprouting. It's Sunday, October 7th, and these are the final results of my fig cuttings. All 5 of these have successfully rooted into successful trees that are able to be placed out in full sun. They've been in full sun for a while. Now, if you'll notice, I only have 1 Violet de Bordeaux remaining. Most of the other half of my cuttings were killed during Hurricane Florence. I had to evacuate for 7 days, and I had to move them into the garage, and it got so deathly hot and humid in there that half of my fig cuttings rotted. So I noticed the Laterola Italian honey fig, the cuttings performed much better than the Violet de Bordeaux did. So that means to me that these are probably superior for hot, humid environments, like here in the coastal southeast. This is also a Laterola Italian honey fig. Some kind of bug ate around the stem of my big plant, but I was still able to transplant the cutting just directly in the soil, and it's taken off. So all said and done, I have 1 Violet de Bordeaux fig, and I have 4 Italian honey figs that are successful. And I want to show you real quick what a successful root system looks like. Here you can see just how deep the roots run. You can see them hanging down. So there's still a lot more room for growth in this little container. So that means we're going to keep this in here for a while. But overall, these cuttings are doing very well. So this is precisely why in the beginning I mentioned you want to start many more fig cuttings than you intend to actually keep, because there will be failures along the way. If it weren't for the hurricane, they all would have been successful because they did all bud out and shoot out roots. So it goes to show you that conditions can really mess you up. This is my Violet de Bordeaux that I got from Burpee as a little twig a few months ago. And you can see how nice and big it is now. So this is going to be a beautiful tree next year. I'm going to overwinter this after the leaves fall off. You can see I'm even getting little figlets right here on it. Obviously it's too late in the season to do anything about them, but it's nice to know that this should definitely fruit next year. If you notice something different about my backyard, that's because over last weekend I moved into a brand new house that I was building out here in Southeastern North Carolina, so that's why the updates have been slow over the past couple of weeks. It's been a lot of work, but there will be more on that later. As always, guys, please subscribe to the channel. I'll have a lot more updates coming as things progress. I'm going to have a really nice winter garden project on my hands, and I'd love it if you all followed along. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one.